Hello, welcome to the studio. I am here with Ezechi Britton MBE, and it's true to say that there is a version of his career for almost every part of the tech ecosystem. Developer, founder, CTO, VC, policy architect, MBE, and now venture studio co-founder, working at what might be the sharpest edge of applied tech using innovation to end homelessness. He's co-founder of Collectively Better, trustee of Crisis, and joins us today in the studio. Thank you so much for making the time to have a chat with us.
Thank you. I've never heard that description before. I love it.
Well, there you go. It's all yours. So you just moderated a panel on tech innovations to prevent homelessness. You know, I have to say, honestly and quite sadly, these are not often the conversations that we do have around technology. So it is really refreshing to have those. What were some of the main things that came out of that conversation?
I think what was so good about that, firstly, it's just really bringing out some of the key data points around homelessness. 300,000 people are suffering extreme homelessness today, whether that's, literally sleeping rough, whether it's sleeping in Airbnbs, whether it's sleeping on people's sofas. That is shocking. And the fact that this is something that can be solved, this is a human-made problem. It's something that with the right will and desire can actually be ended. And I think that's what's so sad about it, which is why it's so great to see these founders today who are actively looking at how innovation can help solve some of these key problems. When I look at what some of the founders were talking about, the things they're focusing on, whether it's around surfacing data so decisions can be made better, whether it's around leveraging insurance and fintech problems to help reduce the pressure on landlords so that it's easier for them to take on potentially at-risk tenants, or whether it's taking empty buildings and repurposing them rather than just leaving them to just go to rot. These are all areas where there's both an impact on society, but can also drive a commercial return. And fundamentally, that's what seems to move the needle. That's what excites me about this type of venture.
And how optimistic are you that some of these solutions may actually be implemented and help with that 300,000 figure?
So I'm a trustee for Crisis. I'm an advisor for the venture studio at Crisis, and I'm an observer on their investment committee. And they've already done 8 investments, and we're already seeing impact
in
from
this
those,
kind of technology,
in these types of organizations. So these aren't theoretical. These are real startups doing real things, who with real customers and have actually helped solve these problems in the wild and are already starting to see a return. There's one particular organization that weren't able to pitch today, unfortunately, that's Fidus, and they're a fantastic business that's looking at different ways to provide mortgages, and we've seen them go from strength to strength. And in fact, one of our organizations, Husmus, has already quadrupled their revenue in the last 6 months. So these are real businesses solving real problems that have a social impact, also drive a commercial outcome.
But do you think it's hard to get investors who are looking at tech and innovation to put their money into these kind of ventures? Because as you say, it needs to be commercial, it needs to provide a return for a big section of people to want to invest in them.
So I'd say yes, it is. And this is really my call to action to all of those philanthropic donors out there. Those investors who, okay, wonderful, you've already got your 10x returns. What else could you do? Do you need another 2 billion in the pocket? Really, seriously,
True,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been a VC, I've been a founder, I've worked with government, I've raised money, I've spent money, I've done all these things. I would love to see some of these philanthropic donors out there turning their eyes to this space and going, you know what? This is a problem we can actually solve. Can we put some of those dollars to good usage? I mean, Elon Musk is on track to be a trillionaire. Imagine what he could do if he actually turned his mind to this space rather than getting us to Mars quicker.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of technologists arrive at social impact through philanthropy or ESG commitments. How did you come to this moment in your life?
So I was a founder, a fintech founder, started back in 2014. And off the back of that, I launched an organization called Code Untapped, which was focused on bringing together diverse technologists with corporates, really leveraging the unique network and skill set that I myself, as an ex-corporate technologist, had created and built. Through that, I was then asked to join an organization called ImpactX Capital. It's a venture capital fund investing in diverse and underrepresented technology founders. And through that work, I then got an MBE for services, diversity, and young people. But whilst in that role as a principal and CTO for the fund, I was approached by Crisis to be an advisor for their nascent venture studio, helping advise them on their investment portfolio. And it was through that I then got exposure to Crisis as an organization. And I was able to see what they were doing, the impact of that. And coming back to my previous point, having worked in that diversity space, seeing the challenge of it, seeing the hurdles we've had to overcome, and then seeing a very real human problem that can actually be solved, I was just immediately drawn to getting involved in that.
Yeah.
And I think 5 years later, I'm still with Crisis, and I've now been a trustee for 4 years.
I mean, it's interesting, the Crisis Venture Studio, until I was researching you for this interview, I'd never heard of the Crisis Venture Studio. I wonder how many people do know that much about it. It invests in, supports and creates startups specifically to end homelessness. That's quite an unusual structure, actually, isn't it? Maybe a charity running a venture studio. So what do you think it's doing right, and what does it get right that conventional social impact investing might miss?
Well, I think firstly, when we look at Crisis obviously a charity focused on ending homelessness, started with Crisis at Christmas. What people don't really understand about Crisis is that it's a large organization. They generate about 65 million pounds a year in donations.
Okay.
And that is spread across an estate of activities, from supporting people through homelessness through their crisis centres, the Skylights, to changing policy across the UK, to commercial real estate opportunities through their crisis stores, through e-commerce, through their website, to helping literally end homelessness through buying homes for their new Good Place Lettings, ethical lettings agency, all the way over to the venture philanthropy space and the venture studio. So Crisis is one of the most innovative charities I've ever seen. And they launched the first charitable philanthropic focused venture fund with the venture studio. And what gives me confidence is that model is now starting to be replicated. In fact, I hope they don't mind me saying this. So Macmillan, the cancer research charity, announced their own venture fund, £30 million fund focused on cancer research, but from a commercial startup perspective. So you're seeing more and more organizations going, you know what, this is something we could actually do that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Not only does it drive change, but has the potential to drive returns back into the organization. So all the profits from the venture studio are recycled back into the mission. Every donation, no donor to the venture studio sees capital flow back to them. That is a permanent donation, and the profits that it drives go back into funding the venture studio to drive more positive outcomes.
And so how easy has it been to drive donations to Crisis Venture Studio?
I'd say it's still a challenge, right? I mean, they've done an extraordinary job. I think they've raised between 2 to 5 million over the last few years, and they're still focusing on building up a larger fund. But I think the issue for donors, they don't necessarily see that connection between homelessness and technology.
Yeah.
Right? And typically what you see donors going, oh, I want to help someone have a home at Christmas, which is fantastic. I want to ensure someone has a warm meal and a warm drink, which is amazing. I want to help drive policy change. Fantastic. But there's a whole different breed of donor out there who has that investment hat on going, how do I make my pounds, my dollars have real social impact and drive that change? And typically they're attracted to your cancer research organizations, your British Heart Foundations, all these other really big, well-known, research-heavy charities. And I think trying to get those individuals and those corporates as well to see the importance of investing in this space, an area where we can really drive impactful change and solve this problem.
Can you tell us about maybe one of the startups that has been invested, just to get to make it sort of real? one of the startups that has been invested in through this fund that has got legs and that is doing well?
I mentioned Husmus just earlier, actually. Husmus, on the surface of it, they're helping landlords bring on tenants by providing an insurance product that allows them to de-risk that tenant. Most people go, okay, that's interesting. But for me, why I find that so exciting is this is a genuine fintech, which obviously is very close to my heart, given my background, that is trying to take that approach and apply it to the problem of housing.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen that real cross-pollination. But what's extraordinary, as I said, is they've seen 4x growth in the last 6 months, trying to solve a social enterprise issue through a commercial tech solution. So be able to see that improvement over time, given the support that an organization like Christ had given to them, is extraordinary. Another organization I mentioned, FIDA, they're looking at how can we make mortgages more accessible to those people who are outside of the typical investment space. So almost Sharia compliant mortgages, right? And this is a space that is growing at an extraordinary pace. Actually, this startup has really hit it out the park and is doing extremely well. And so what we've already seen is some extraordinary growth stories from within our portfolio. A couple of others focusing on house building solutions.
Okay.
So how do we make it easier to either flat pack, prefab new houses, or leverage unusual spaces like above car parks, corner plots, to actually build housing where we wouldn't normally see it. And then all the way up to finding better planning solutions so that we can get more housing approved quicker, faster, cheaper, more easily. So that's a bit of a broad swathe.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. So it's just so it becomes a bit more tangible.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I wish you all the best with that. I hope it really does well. And you also mentioned, Ezechi, the Impact X Capital.
Yes.
You're the founding member of it, founded to support underrepresented entrepreneurs across Europe, particularly the Afro-Caribbean diaspora. And there's specific industries that you focus on as well, I believe. What drove you to start that up?
So I was actually approached by the CEO, Eric Collins, right at the beginning. And it's interesting, he was looking for a very specific profile of individual to join Impact X. He wanted someone with a technology background who understood the corporate space, who had been a founder, ideally been a CTO, but was also from an ethnic minority black background and had had an exit. And there are not many people.
I told you in the introduction, I read it, all your hats out.
There are not many people with that background. And that's how we
Probably
got introduced to each other.
like the only one in the world.
Probably. I hope I'm not for too long. And bear in mind, this was back in 2018, 2019. Right?
All right, so there are obviously 100 of you now.
I hope so. And it really spoke to me because the reason why I set up Code Untapped was I genuinely believe technology has been a superpower of mine. We talk about the glass ceilings, concrete ceilings, and I've always felt technology is the thing that has enabled me to grow and smash through those barriers. And yet, when I looked at the founding space back in 2019, there weren't many people who looked like me. And so I set up Code Untapped to help fix that problem from a technology space. And then when Eric approached me and said, look, let's invest, I thought, let's do this. Because there was another element to this, which was as a technologist in the banking sector, you don't typically find yourself in the finance space directly, actually being in charge of the money. You're usually enabling it in some way, shape or form. So having an opportunity to directly drive and do investments as a former technologist, but specifically helping to solve that particular problem, it was something I just couldn't turn down.
No, absolutely. Let me ask you this. The last 2 years have been dominated or more. The discourse has been all around AI.
Yep.
As someone who sits in all of these spaces, you probably have a really good overview on how it's changing. Does any part of you feel worried about the changes that AI is bringing with it, particularly with regard to the fact that it's advancing so fast, and is it going to get to a point where maybe it could be dangerous for humans without some element of control.
So let's be clear. I think every technology has the opportunity to be dangerous. Every tech. I think AI is unique in the way that you're already seeing applications where it has the ability to self-evolve. And I don't say that lightly. Yes, we're already seeing some approaches to doing this. On top of that, it's what it's doing from a displacement of human capital in organizations is also quite frightening in many ways, right? We've seen massive changes over the centuries in terms of the Industrial Revolution and the rest, and what that does. You know, we went from horse and cart to cars. You know, we've gone from water and steam power to combustion engines. And every one of these shifts has created a huge, huge change in what's happened. Look at what happened when we shut down the coal mines in the UK. So this is a normal change.
Yeah.
What is concerning about the AI shift is what are the jobs that are going to replace those roles? And I'd say it's probably too early to be able to say what that looks like. Look, I use AI heavily.
We all do, right?
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Some of the startups we heard today leveraging AI for good in the work they do. So I think that's absolutely important. I do get very concerned though, because these LLMs aren't actually intelligent. What they are doing is statistical pattern matching based on a corpus of knowledge and information that they've gleaned from the entire database of human knowledge. And what you're often seeing is a reinforcement of the biases that are already present, but then actually being industrialized. That really concerns me. Because once that's baked into the system, how do you build that out? And I don't know if in your experiments with AI and LLMs, you've ever found it picking up a lesson that you didn't really want it to have.
Not that much.
Maybe you've given it a document, maybe you've given it a photo, and all of a sudden it's determined that this is the image it's going to use.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell it, no, don't use that one, use this one. How do you train these things out once they're baked into the system?
Yeah.
And these are very real problems. So I think the other big issue is, from a black box perspective, we still don't really know how some of these solutions are actually working or what's going on underneath the hood. So the risk of exploitation, the risk of misuse, the damage that can be created is significant now. You know, we've gone from individuals who can, cook up a bomb on the internet to now literally asking an LLM to build them one, right? So that shift of power has dramatically changed, and that creates all sorts of terrifying outcomes for society, in all honesty. So I think there are some very real risks with AI, but I think it's beholden to us to ensure the guardrails are in there. It's not about not utilizing AI, it's not about being a Luddite, but it's about making sure that we have those protections. We have to have regulations. It's important.
No, but what's worrying about this is a conversation that's been going on for years as well, in tandem with AI changing and becoming more powerful.
Yeah.
And it feels like there isn't really a sufficient response to the call for the guardrails. And I guess that's what's concerning. And no one really knows how to manage it.
But let's call out the elephant in the room. The reason for that is that the vast majority of those AI companies are not based in Europe.
Yes, and they're benefiting from what's happening right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that Europe, the UK, start to build their own technology solutions.
Yeah.
Start to build their own LLMs, their own AI systems, their own rails, their own databases, their own scalable systems, so that we can have technology that we can leverage that bakes in some of those safety rails.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that other people can't develop them. Yes, they can.
Yeah,
but at least
we can
have
protect
a counter,
ourselves.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that I know we're about to wrap up, but I just saw a headline before I came here to interview you, which was about Donald Trump, or I don't know if it was someone in his administration, you may have seen it, saying to the UK not to ban social media for under 16s. And that's exactly to that point. You know, it's so beneficial to American companies. It's not beneficial for us here in the UK, or indeed in lots of parts of the world. So, you know, that exactly highlights what you're saying.
No, I find it extraordinary that they can complain about the damage of us preventing tech companies from showing pornographic images to people under the age of 16.
Yeah.
Yet if we complain about tariffs, it's like, well, what are you talking about? So it's
different wavelength.
It's we have to, you know, we talk about taking back control. Well, let's actually take back some control and impose, it's not enough just to impose these restrictions on these companies. Let's build some of these solutions ourselves. Let's grow some of these companies.
Come on, Ezechi, that's your next project.
I'll get there.
It's like you need to wear another hat, so we'll give that one to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us here.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.